This is the Powered Up Podcast, show 139.
So to me, it's getting out of your way to inspire. But number two, going on to show them that there is a future just ahead of them that they must strive for and work for. But three, understanding them and knowing what they know, what they are capable of doing, and helping them start doing some of the things that you may realize they can do, but personally at their individual level, they had not realized that they could do such things.
Welcome to a real world education with insight and advice from teachers in the game, where current and former educators reveal what truly sets apart the great teachers and what it takes to make a positive impact on students. Whether you're in pre-service learning, new to the game, or a seasoned veteran, this is the show for you. You'll leave feeling inspired to take action because we are powering education by empowering you.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Kennerman, host of the Powered Up Podcast, and I am here along with my co-host, Mr. Matt, the Community Man Rogers. Matt, we had, which will be undoubtedly a very, very memorable conversation for the two of us, and I think an unbelievable recording for our audience as well.
I totally agree. And I think, is this another continent off the world map for us?
That is
No.
correct.
Did you have someone from Egypt, possibly?
Saudi Arabia, I believe.
Okay.
Which I believe would technically be, I'm really going to expose myself geography-wise, but I think technically that would be considered Asia.
That's
The
what
Middle
I'm
East is
under
considered
the...
Asia.
Yeah.
Right. So our guest today was from Uganda, Cohens Mugisha, and I got to tell you, it was a humbling conversation for me, but he laid on so many great instructional approaches and mindsets towards teaching that it was an unbelievable conversation. And I don't mean this to come out in a disrespectful way at all, but you know, we have talked to so many state teacher of the year winners on this show. And I felt like we were just talking to another state teacher of the year winner because he is a fantastic educator.
Well, I think his hope and value for education was really present. Like, what I thought was interesting was we have heard from great educators the challenges of education, the challenges that educators face across this country, and how that might often come off as a hindrance to us being successful. Cohen just exuded satisfaction, joy, and privilege to be an educator and really unlock goals and ambition for kids, and almost the responsibility that he felt to be that for his kids. It was both really comforting to say, it feels like this is very similar to everything that I feel, and good, bad, indifferent, culture, continent, world, like all of those factors. It was like, oh, he's a teacher, I'm a teacher. We are clearly speaking the same language, the same passion, the same vision. And that simply is, what do my kids need to be as successful as possible? So really a dynamic conversation, enlightening, and really it shows that, there is so much value, but also comfort that universally we have this love for doing right for kids, regardless what part of the earth we're coming from.
Yeah, that's undoubtedly true. And the beginning of the conversation, we talk a lot about ed tech, which was very interesting. And it was insightful and to hear what they're trying to introduce and expose their children to, some of the trepidations they see as well. And the conversation was very informative at that point, and it transitioned at some point into being rich and beautiful. And what you just said about the hope of education and the pursuit for doing what's best for students. So I would really encourage our listeners, hopefully you do this every time, but make sure you listen to the end because this conversation goes through many transformations and it only gets better and better until the very last moment of the podcast when he no longer talks and then we finish it up. That's the only time that it gets worse at the
Yeah.
end. So absolutely. So please enjoy this conversation with Cohens Mugisha. Hi Mugisha, welcome to the Powered Up podcast. How you doing today?
I'm glad, Ken. I'm doing well, and thank you for hosting me.
Excellent. We are really excited to have you here. So, to start things off, please just officially introduce yourself to our audience. Let us know where you are coming from and your experience in education.
Thank you, Ken. My name is Cohens Mugisha. I am a teacher, a very passionate teacher from Uganda, which is in East Africa. I have been teaching for the last 2 years, but I also had an opportunity to teach as an apprentice teacher immediately after my high school. So, but I'm very passionate about edtech, and I've been doing quite a number of projects with the Ministry of Education here, and trying to help my students, but also my colleagues, to see how best we can integrate technology and ICT to enhance teaching and learning.
Excellent. I'm really excited for this conversation. Your geographic location being one of those reasons, but also to get to know you as a person and educator. So most of our audience is listening from the United States. Um, can you give us an idea of like what does ed tech look like in your school? What are some of the technologies that you are bringing into your students in classrooms, maybe exposing them the first time that you feel has really been beneficial for your students?
Thank you, Ken. In my school, where I teach at Cord High School, it's just near the capital city of Kampala. It's not very remote, but we have things like computers, and you have projectors, you have smart screens that at a point you want to use while delivering a lesson. So I think in our school, it's we use smartphones as teachers, but two, we also take advantage of computers. Then you also have projectors and screens. So at a point, you can display any content using these screens. You can use projectors to play videos. At a point, when you have documents that you think maybe would be a little, not very visible for students, but you would also want them, maybe they are online but they don't have access, use projectors to project such work. So I think it's largely smartphones, then we are looking at computers and using laptops within school.
In the United States specifically, I can say that technology has been a playing field leveler. So students that come from different backgrounds have the same access to technology. They have the same access to the world. And so when thinking about growing up and developing skills, and if they want to be a computer coder, or if they want to be a in the fields of writing and blogging and digital media, it didn't matter as much where they came from. It was more open possibilities. How do you feel like where you teach, having the use and the preparation of technology allows the students you work with to dream big and set goals that they may not have prior to having access to that technology?
Good, Matt. I think, unlike in the US, here in Uganda, access to technology, especially in most schools, is not uh, something easy. Accessibility is one of the challenges we are still struggling with. But for example, where I teach, because the students have at least access to these facilities, like you say, regardless of where they come from, when they come to a school environment, they are just fine to use these resources provided they are available and they can access them. But the excitement is always too much, because at a point you realize that as young people, they want to get into spaces like, creating apps, and then they want to get into coding. Some of them are really talented in writing, so they want to know how to blog and use this technology to make sure that they enhance some of the skills and talents that they have. So I think the excitement here is always too much at school. And when they have access, for example, when you say we are going to open the computer lab, all right, and have access, you always find it very, very full because everyone is there. They are trying to teach their colleagues on how to do a PowerPoint presentation. The other one is trying to teach them how to code. And then we also have an ICT and innovation club that has been motivated by such an environment. So I think the excitement is high, and some of the children, they are finding some of their dreams. They are trying to align themselves in this kind of IT related environment so that they are able to enhance some of the skills, but also facilitate their learning as children.
So, as educators, there's so much that we want to do with students and help them learn and gain, technology being a part, the facts and the information and the experiences that they're learning. But through the conversation on this podcast that we've had and just our own experience as teachers, Matt and I, we know that relationships with students and the connection we have with students is so important, and their home lives is important. So I almost think it would be inappropriate to continue this conversation without getting a better understanding to learn who your students are. Who are the students that you are interacting with on a daily basis? Just give us an idea of like, what does their home life look like? What does the community you live in look like? Because I really want to appreciate and understand what you are experiencing on a daily basis with your students, and as well as what they're experiencing on a daily basis, to really get this total picture in mind.
Oh, good. Here we have like three levels of education. That's when kids between maybe they are 3 to maybe to around 4 or 5 years, then kindergarten. But from there they go to primary stage, and then from primary they go to secondary, are at maybe at the age of 13. So the children I interact with are in a secondary, they are pursuing secondary education. Those are ages between 13 largely to 20 maximum. So it's between 13 to 20. Yeah. And they are self-guided at a point. They know at a point what they want, if they are going to use some of these materials or any kind of facilities, they receive instructions from teachers. And as an educator, you take the initiative to make sure that they are guided and they know what exactly to do in the given time. So I think the relationship is not just one that is too strict, because at a point they can guide themselves when given instructions and they are clear. They can guide themselves and take themselves on a journey of self-discovery and also do tasks as required.
Can you share a little bit more just about the community that you live in? From just not even related to the school itself, just to give us a more complete picture of just like I said, the community you live in.
The community that we have is one that is still trying to adopt technology, all right, as a means, to enhance teaching and learning. However, there are also quite a number of worries that parents at a point are, a few parents can be willing to support their children, for example, in providing gadgets, while we also have a community that has parents that are quite worried about maybe how these teenagers use or make use of these technologies. They are worried they may land on maybe illicit content. At a point, maybe they are too excited to use it only for social media, go on TikTok, Facebook, WhatsApp, and then at a point, they do not become productive. So I think in terms of the community and adopting technology and embracing it, we are still trying to cultivate a culture where parents have confidence within the students, but even the schools themselves, that they trust students that when they have access to this technology, they are going to appropriately and conventionally use it. Lest for children that are excited, especially those that meet some of these technologies or digital tools for the first time, they are too excited and at a point they may end up not being productive in the process. Yeah, but we are trying as much as we can to make sure we engage all stakeholders and also encourage children and show them the value that they can find in using technology to enhance their learning, but also outside school, they could use this same technology to develop themselves, do projects, and at a point, some of them are already earning from simple skills like doing graphics work. Okay, so I think that's the kind of environment that we have. A little supportive, but there are also some bits of worries on how these young people use the technology.
which, which I love. Ken, I mean, that is, I think the concerns and limiting factors of, the World Wide Web is, there is a lot of good, and there is also some definitely concerning natures to that. That's, universally, I think we all want to shield as much as we can. Um, I'll say so. I work in a farming community where the students often feel torn, um, a little bit less now, but feel torn when their families normally would go and work on the farm, and school would work around the farming environment because farming was the priority. And I wonder, is there aspects of whether it's culture or value systems that either help or hinder the progress you make in school because of, the challenges or benefits of living in Uganda, or what that community prioritizes? um, does that influence what you do in the classroom at all?
Yeah, partly. I think in a classroom, the school where I teach is largely a boarding school that students stay within. So most of them, almost 98 or even 99% of them, stay within school. So by the time they are in school, there are no diversions like you're going back home to do any other kind of activity. But away from my school, but in Uganda here, we also have very many schools that where students go to school and go back home. And at a point, they may get hindered, especially in situations where maybe they are fending for themselves, they have to look for tuition or school fees by doing other activities. But I don't think it is affecting them so much, especially those that stay within school. When it is school time, then it is school business. There are not a number of distractions. So I think even the society itself has appreciated education that would not have to hold a child home to do farming, to do fishing, to do other sorts of work that may distract them. It has been a government policy that children must go to school, and we are seeing some sort of progress where parents mind and they know that if it is time for school, children necessarily must commit to their education and pursuing that, not getting diverted. However, on a few and isolated occasions, you'll find those that at a point, because they have to find ways of surviving and raising their tuition, at a point they can be diverted, miss school for like 1 week, and by the time they are doing that, they are absent, they are missing on lessons, they are not doing assignments. At a point, they miss maybe doing assessments. So I think we also still have those isolated cases, especially for schools that allow children to go home and come back. But for those where students stay within school for a period of over 3 months, uh, those cases are really minimal.
Yeah. Can you kind of speak to what a school day looks like? Is it like, with it being necessarily boarding school, what is standard agenda for a student, um, uh, in your school? Is it like a traditional, like, math class, bell ring, go to language, bell ring, go to science, like that's very structured how it is in my elementary school? But is there any similarities or differences of how the school day is structured?
Oh, good. Yes, for most schools, just like you say, a school has a timetable, that we know early morning hours we are going to have English language lessons, and maybe in the next 1 hour we have, let's say, mathematics, and then they have some sort of break. After that break of like 30 minutes, some schools have like 1 hour, then they get into another session of lessons. So they can go for physics, they can go for ICT, and then they have a break for lunch. And then after lunch, they have still to go back to classes, largely in the new curriculum where they are largely focusing on competencies. After lunch, now students have to go and do project works. Okay, so they can be in clubs, they can go for football, they can go for ICT projects. So they engage in various co-curricular and extracurricular activities, but also doing projects that are related with the subjects that they do. But on a daily, there is a specific timetable where students attend to lessons are in a timetable manner. I don't know if that really explains your question.
No, that was perfect.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you work with secondary students, so ages approximately 13 to 20. What are some of your goals in supporting them in their growth and things that you want them to accomplish? So, for us, we have as elementary teachers, so that would be Matt and I. That's working with students between ages of 5 and 11 approximately, but you would only have all 10-year-olds or all 11-year-olds by grade level. Secondary, we have the same terminology, and it's again that like 13 to 18 range. So in that age range, our teachers are teaching a specific content. So they're teaching physics or they're teaching mathematics. But our great teachers do more than that. They foster teamwork. They encourage students to improve their communication skills or their collaboration skills. So, and also looking at what happens after they graduate from high school. Do they go to college? Do they go into a trade school? Do they go directly into the workforce or the military? So as you work with these students and you're teaching content and you're looking at integrating technology, what are some of the other skills and life lessons that you're looking to help these students with to help them grow and thrive after they leave school?
Good question. Well, as I said, to me, I think I have not had the mentality that a teacher is only a classroom teacher. I have taken, a stride to go even outside school. I still have to meet students from other schools and take them. I have a mentorship hub that I run. So, but largely in school, for example, I am a debate coach, all right? And through debate activities, they help these kids, to get into activities of critical thinking, develop their public speaking skills. I am also very passionate about, helping them, do and up their skills, for example, in spoken word poetry. And then at the end of the day, you realize that kids within themselves, even when you may require them to present, it becomes difficult. But through spaces like debate, poetry, leadership seminars that I have been at the top of in organizing them, they have helped kids, develop these public speaking skills, effective communication, but also I take time to lecture and teach them, for example, how to write essays, not necessarily academic essays, but some of them are competitive and also writing for expression and fun. So to me, I think it is beyond what I do in class. Even in my English or literature classes, I want them to find whatever they are learning are adding value and becoming relevant to what they do in real life. That a student is learning literature, but if they cannot perform a short skit of 2 minutes out of the literature they study, or dramatize or even role play in some of the simulations that are situations that happen in their real communities, then I think that does not add up a lot. So I've taken ventures as an individual, but also working together with other colleagues to ensure that kids have spaces where they can express themselves, where they can discover what skills they have and how to grow those skills. But two, on the aspect of following them up, I also believe that even when they have the skills, they need platforms. So I also go on, I serve with National Debate Council Uganda, and I have quite a number of networks. We look for competitive spaces for them to interact with other students from other schools and from other countries on exchange programs. So through these exchange programs, students, it helps them, to grow their esteem. That when they are debating with students from Japan, they'll be like, oh, we recently, last year in June, we participated in some NSDA debates that are hosted in the US. They're like, oh, it was exciting to them because they really realized that what they can do is also being done out there, and they can globally also at a point compete. So to me, I think it's beyond classroom work. It's going into skill development, talent development, and helping these kids be themselves and appreciate the value of who they are and what they are capable of doing without necessarily restraining them to keep in a classroom. And then maybe the last thing on the idea of follow up. I have had scenarios that we have academies where we enroll and offer some of these children internship spaces that someone wants to pursue, wants to do journalism, or maybe do a radio presenter or TV presenter, or they want to be communication specialists. So with some of the networks that I have, I always ensure that I have them and I recommend them for such opportunities to do internship. And some of them have gone on to get employment opportunities just from those internship programs. So I think that's the kind of individual or teacher I am, that I would not only want to see a student in class maybe get good grades, but get out there and they don't apply what they have been able to learn. I always want to make sure that they enjoy their time in school and take advantage of it because there are quite a number of opportunities for them.
What you just said is really beautiful, and it's I think it's our job as teachers to do that. It's not just the delivery of a specific content and a specific set of facts. And it sounds like what you're doing is not the norm of teachers. You mentioned working with some other colleagues doing the same. How are you changing, we'll say, what you quote unquote should have been doing to what you just showcased? What are some strategies that you use in your classroom to bring in the community or to expose students to things outside that you feel have allowed you to successfully do that in the classroom?
Oh, good. Well, in my classrooms or while teaching, when I give, for example, when I give assignments, you give them, for instance, a topic of debate. I want them, to be able to use external resources, like reaching out to people outside school and reach out to other people to get information that they can come back and, you know, share with their colleagues. So one of them is encouraging a space of knowledge sharing and experience, that you need to give them room. Okay, in my lessons on, if it's a topic whether on IT or it's on maybe childhood memories, you need to give them room, to share, because they come from different backgrounds, different cultures. So giving them room to share knowledge and experiences is one of the things that I really value so much. But number two, also trying to, to showcase or show them some videos maybe from other communities, because some of them have not been to many places, and they may think it's their own world that is doing a particular thing. But I also try to use technology, for example, to show them some videos of what happens in other communities. And this helps them at least to learn one or two things. And I always challenge them, to compare and contrast, see what is done in the other world where they are not, or where they are not exposed to, and what happens in their own world. And also try to see, can they also be in position to adopt maybe some new things that they think can add value to them and make them be more productive, become more skillful. So I think that is also an avenue that I use, but also challenging them to read. Okay, to me, I believe there is power in reading and expression. That when they are reading, I'm reading a text or a novel or a storybook, from that is written or based on whose setting or is in the US. So a child reading this kind of novel or kind of story, they get to know what happens in the life of a student in the US. But the last thing has been making invitations to some of the friends that I have through the networks I have to speak and interact with these children on several occasions. So I think that also helps them. That I'm a teacher, but I know there are other colleagues of mine that are doing almost the same thing I'm doing. Or if I'm teaching a topic and I feel there is someone who is an expert, I know Ken is in the US, then at a point I make invitations for these people to come and speak to the children, whether online, largely it is online. For those that can come around physically, I also do such. So that's how, those are some of the things that I think I have tried to use to make sure that exposure is there.
I would love to know. We all love to talk about student success. What are some of the projects or outcomes that you've been most proud to help and see with your students through the years that you've really pushed the boundary to provide a great experience to kids?
Good. I think this is really hard a question,
Yeah.
but I'll try.
Yeah.
I think to me, when it comes to classifying maybe what I'm most proud of, number one is that through the debate and speech programs that I have done, I have seen kids become very proud of themselves. From kids that you would meet and tell, stand there and speak to your colleagues for 1 minute, and they would only spend 30 seconds and cry, and you see them shivering and they get off and they tell you, no teacher, that was very hard, I think I'll not do it again. To a stage where they can now speak. They can speak for 10 minutes. They can address people for over and half an hour, and they still have the confidence, and they're talking about issues that affect maybe them as students. But two, I've also managed through this space to help these individuals win accolades. To me, seeing a kid wear maybe a gold medal or a silver medal from a competition where they have written, where they have debated, where they have participated in a poetry competition is also something I feel proud of, because that itself empowers them and encourages them to continue pursuing that they are doing. But the other aspect I think I'm really proud of is that during my time, I have also seen our school motto is building leaders. Now, I have seen most of the students that engage in these activities still are performing well in academics. But number two, they are also becoming excellent leaders. That when you do screening for example, prefects or student leaders, they are at the top and everyone admires and wants to hear what they are going to say. When they are nominating students to represent the school in certain occasions, these are the students they are looking out for because they believe in their capacity to deliver and do things with some sort of uniqueness and extraordinary, presentation skills and the rest. So I think it could be a lot of things within school and outside school. But what I pride in most is seeing that students have, taken a step from the timid individuals they used to be, from the people that could not even write a line of a poem, from the people that thought they could not speak before others, to the persons they have become, and they can speak and they continue to inspire others also to join the same.
That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. We want to try to do a segment of the show that we do once in a while with our guests, and we call it our lesson lens. And the idea is to ask you a couple of questions just to learn about a specific activity or a specific lesson that you do with your students, just to paint the picture of your classroom a little bit more. You want to give it a shot?
Yeah, I think it's okay. We could.
Okay. All right. So the first question is, would you like to tell us about a long term project or a single lesson that you do with your students?
Uh, well, a long-term project is looking up to
Okay.
writing a poetry anthology. Yes, doing a poetry
Okay.
anthology.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So the next question is, and you alluded it to a little bit there, what are the objectives for this project?
Our number one is to enable students express themselves, especially on issues that affect them as students. But number two, to enhance their writing skills using the art of writing. But three is also to enable these children to educate the community about the issues and the stories. Some could be inspiring, some could be about the challenges that they face. But one is the whole idea is to educate and speak to a wider world through writing. Because people could be interested in doing a couple of things, but I believe this kind of anthology would help them, to communicate to a wider world through people that are going to read. Yeah, I think that's it largely.
What are some of the responsibilities of students throughout that long term project? What are they being asked to do? Obviously, writing, possibly research. What are the different features that you're looking for them to actively do during this lesson?
Good. Students, number one, I have tasked them to look at, for example, problem statements. I challenge them to go out and see if we are going to do a project, it's going to be their project, they own it. And one of the responsibilities they have is to go out and look at a problem statement, all right, and come up with a kind of backing or purpose for this anthology and how they think it is going to help, you know, uh, get out there and maybe help people read and make, bear an impact on themselves, but also on the community itself. But number two, they are also going to practically write. Every individual is going to sit down and write an original poem. So to me, that makes sense to them because they are not going to only go and do research, but it should be an original work. At the end of the day, if their poem appears in the anthology, they will be proud to say, yes, this is my work and I put effort, I put energy to it. So that would be a plus for them. And then the last thing is that even in the process of typing and typesetting it or editing it, they are going to be actively involved. It's not me collecting and then I edit. No, they get together. We are developing a student's portfolio using Padlet. So we keep putting our work. All right. At a point, we use other devices to go through the work and review it. So on top of writing, even processes like editing, will be doing it as a team, not necessarily one individual. That students can look through their work and then encourage or correct each other, say, here, I think we can make this revision until the whole process is done. The typing is also theirs because that will also enable them to have some, hands-on skills on how to type my own poem and then put it in a design that I want it, being helped by others in case they do not know some processes.
I love that. What are you actively doing to support students through this process, with a lot of it being them doing the research and the writing and the typing? So what is your role to support them towards that successful goal?
Good. To me, my role largely is to make sure that they have access to some of the supporting resources. For example, if you talk about typing, students don't have gadgets. They are not allowed to own phones or computers at school. So one of the roles is that largely I need to help them have access to some of the resources or supporting materials that they need. For example, computers. If they need internet, at a point I step in as an individual. If the school Wi-Fi is off, then I need to make sure they have access to internet if they need to do research, but also trying to bring sharing models with them. Okay, they want to write an anthology, but they need to look at maybe what other anthologies have been published, and they be like, okay, we think ours would be better than this. So it's providing, sorry, helping them have access to resources that are not at their disposal as students, but two, are trying to make sure that I get them models and other supporting materials that could help them in the process. But then the other thing is are becoming, an icon or center of motivation, because most of them come and be like, I think I have written, but I don't think this makes sense. I'm like, no, you need to write, this makes sense. It's- so I think that is also something that I have found very challenging. Many kids will reach out, they'll be like, no, I think we can do something else, but my role now there is to tell them, no, you don't need to give this up. Keep on writing. You can change this. You don't need to particularly fit into this template. You can change it, but make sure you don't go away from what you're supposed to do. So motivation and encouraging them is also another part that I think I really have to hold and push them to do what they're supposed to do.
So, one of my favorite questions, part of this is we as educators are always looking to tinker, to adjust, to make it a little bit better. If you were to say, you know, everything goes incredibly well, where could you see this growing and going to even make it better for your students?
Well, I believe in the near future, I would see these kids, for example, becoming great speakers, great writers, all right? Because from writing, some of them could become professional editors, for example. Uh, they have some of them have always asked me, but you always bring poems in class and we discuss them. But who is William Shakespeare? Who is William Wordsworth? And I'm like, but they also started like you. They started writing small lines. So to me, I look forward to a future where these kids from this simple group and team anthology, they also become self-published individuals. They become professional editors who are going to work with media houses, communication companies, and the rest of the things. So to me, it's not largely here, but I look up to a point when these kids become the very best of editors and writers and publishers and communication managers are in that kind of sphere, specifically for this project of writing.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really enjoyed hearing about that, and it's really reassuring and amazing to me how many similarities there are between the strategies and the skills you're using with so many of the other incredible teachers that we've had on this podcast. So we're going to hit our last segment of the show, which we call the exit ticket, which are the same four questions we ask every guest every week. What is the best thing a teacher can do to make a student's school experience better?
Oh, interesting, interesting. Okay, there could be quite a number of things a teacher can do, but to me, one of them that stands out is one understanding the children a teacher is interacting with, knowing them from interests, knowing what their dreams are, knowing their strength, knowing their weaknesses at a point, but also trying to make an effort to make sure those children, appreciate who they are, regardless of their background and the rest. I think to me that is one of the things, understanding the kind of children or learner you are trying to interact with. But maybe too, it could also be providing spaces after identifying what the student likes, what their interests are, is that you go out of the way, all right, from teaching them mathematics and showing them how they can apply mathematics outside the classroom. So providing opportunities and platforms for expression, for exhibition and learning, or even networking also helps them enjoy their school experience. And then maybe the third one could be because they have had the opportunities, showing them or motivating them to think about the future, okay, and looking at life in the future, not what is happening to them at the moment. Some children, they have a tendency of thinking, okay, it is school time, and some of them think maybe times are going to remain the same. They will continue to have the same people around them, but inspiring them to look at themselves in 10 years, 20 years to come is also something that I think a teacher will do to make the experience. Because while they work, they know the people I have right now, they may not be there tomorrow. So I have to do all it takes to make sure I utilize them. All right. The resources I have right now, I may not be in position to have them tomorrow. So they work towards becoming their very best, knowing that there is where they are going after school life. So to me, it's getting out of your way to inspire. But number two, going on to show them that there is a future just ahead of them that they must strive for and work for. But three, understanding them and knowing what they know, what they are capable of doing, and helping them start doing some of the things that you may realize they can do, but personally at their individual level, they had not realized that they could do such things. Yes.
What a beautiful answer.
Yeah, we Matt and I have really just been so impressed with you and have loved this conversation, and now you just solidified it even more. That was an amazing answer.
So, what would you say is the best piece of advice that you've received? And that might have been something that came from a colleague, maybe a supervisor, or even a student that you think of frequently.
Okay, good. The best advice I think I've ever received still was from my teacher. I was almost getting biased to talk about my parent, but later I remembered a point when I was tongue-tied. I didn't know what decision to make, whether to go and do one or two things. But my teacher told me one thing. I had not earlier thought about becoming a teacher. And later in my high school, I found myself choosing a path that was going to lead me to become a teacher. So my teacher, who was very young and passionate, he gave me an ear when everybody seemed not to care, because I was already a leader in school and everyone looked at me as if I was very advantaged. Yet I had quite a number of challenges. So this teacher told me, Farouk, he was like, Cohens, you may look at teaching as just a profession, but to me, if you were to become a teacher, you'd just be a class teacher beyond classroom. A teacher is meant for a student, all right? And then I realized that, oh, so away from teaching literature, physics, mathematics, one still has to go on and bear an impact. But number two, he also challenged me to be a teacher of difference. That you don't want to go out there and then be a teacher like any other teachers. He was like, in all you do, make sure you stand out. So all the time I've been struggling that even when we are trying to do a task or I'm trying to teach, I want to teach in quite a unique way that adds more value than maybe what others are doing. So two things that he told me: one, to make sure I bear an impact, at least in a life of one learner out of thousands and millions of children. He was like, even if you are able to touch the life of one learner who comes back to you and tells you, teacher, I would not have made it if it wasn't for your effort. But number two, he also encouraged me to do things in a unique and different way. And he only told me you can only do things differently when you stand out or be different. So I think it's been one of my mottos. You'll see it elsewhere. It is my mantra that I want to be different and make a difference. And to me, I think that really stands out because it was one of my biggest turning points, even as I decided to become an educator.
That was awesome. So I, I am positive that you are going to have another great answer for this next one. So the school year goes in waves. times where it's a lot going on, and there are times where it's a little bit easier on us teachers. Um, in those times where it's really challenging, what do you feel like teachers need to hear to power up through those moments of challenge and struggle?
Number one could be a compliment from your student.
That
Yes,
is a great one.
yes. I have been in situations where I'm feeling a little low, and then a kid comes all of a sudden. It's like, "Oh, hi, teacher, you're amazing." And then you're seated in class, and then you be like, "Okay, any questions?" And the students you coach, and they tell you, me, teacher, I don't have a question, but I wanted to thank you. You are amazing, teacher." And that to me, I think, would be one of the magical words or things a teacher would want to hear during times of difficulties, because then you feel appreciated and you would want to work more and more, to make sure you earn more of this. So I think a compliment or a good affirmation statement from your learner or student would be one of the greatest. But two, it could also be from colleagues. Yes. And like, okay, you know what, Cohens, this is hard, but yeah, after all, our reward is not here. Even when our bosses pay us or reward us, we are working to make sure we impact the lives of these learners. And if they can be successful in future, you never know. They could be the source of our blessings. So I think it's words of affirmation, words of motivation, and compliments from our learners first, but also from workmates. Yeah, amidst such challenges.
I love that. We had a guest, I'm struggling to remember who it was, but talked about having a folder, whether it be digital or physical or both, where he would save those compliments. So if it came via email or written note. So when you are feeling when you are feeling that stress or you're feeling down, you have those compliments, you have those thank yous that you can flip through and read and revisit so that you can create that moment for yourself in times of need.
Yeah,
So the
sure. I
last
think
go
I
ahead.
think I also share in that. I also share in that. I have quite a number of screenshots where my own children, my own students, and those that I coach in other fields of debate and speech, like on a birthday, they just pour out all that, and I also have a folder for them, and they- they're always a source of energy.
Yep, that's great. So you talked about in your advice about being different and that pursuit of that. So what do you feel separates the teachers who are the ones willing to take those risks and take those chances to be different and to do new and different things for their students? What do you think those teachers have inside of themselves to do that?
Well, I would think that one of them is empathy. Yeah, that would want to imagine ourselves in the shoes of these children. I imagine myself when I was also little like them, dreaming to become a lawyer, and maybe the challenges I went through and what struggles I had, how I was unable to make some decisions at a point, and maybe how I felt when teachers did not attend to me when I felt I needed their attention. So I think such people, it takes empathy that you identify with the challenges and the situations of these learners. But number two is that it also takes creativity, all right? That you're out there and you know there is that one extra thing that you want to do and challenge the learners to do. So it also takes creativity. But three is also about people being passionate or rather enthusiastic about their call and looking at being an educator not necessarily as a profession, but as a call, as a calling. All right. So I think when one is passionate, then they give out their very best to ensure that what they are doing, the results become very visible through their learners. So I think it takes passion, it takes empathy, it takes creativity, and maybe lastly, it could be also personalities that are outgoing, all right? and they love sharing experiences and knowledge. All right. Yeah, there are people or educators that would really be good, but sharing maybe is quite a bit of a challenge. They don't want to share their experiences with the learners, maybe to motivate or even challenge them. So at a point, I feel that limits them from, inspiring students that they would have otherwise inspired or challenged. So largely on those aspects, I think uh, we could have such individuals with such traits.
I will say that I feel, you know, an honor to get a chance to talk to you and just hear the great things that you're doing for your students. It has really been great to learn with and from you. How can our audience continue to connect with you and learn about the great things that you're doing for your students, whether it's social media or a website, anything that you have to share?
Oh, good. Thank you, Matt. It's also my pleasure to get to connect with you. But I am on Twitter uh, at Mugisha Cohens. I am also on LinkedIn, still Mugisha Cohens. I don't have a website yet, but largely on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. However, on Facebook, I have a page of my mentorship hub, MC Inspirations Mentorship Hub. Yeah, uh, that is a platform where I meet young people from different schools and take them through trainings of life skills, debate, speech, and behavior to inspire behavior change and becoming the best of themselves. So it's largely on Twitter and LinkedIn and then Facebook, where it's MC Inspirations Mentorship Hub. And then, of course, maybe others, it would be, of course, we can connect from there, except if there are maybe contacts like WhatsApp or maybe email address. I don't know if really that would.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're comfortable with it, I can share your email address in our show notes page, so any listener would be able to reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. I'll be comfortable doing that. My email address, I think Ken already has
Yes, I do. Yep. Yep.
mugisha@gmail.com.
So I will link up to your Twitter handle, LinkedIn as well in our show notes, which can be found if you just scroll down wherever you're watching or listening to this, or going to our website at powereduup.com. So again, Cohen's, thank you so much for doing this. I absolutely love this conversation. I feel I gained a lot of insight. I feel you shared a lot of perspective for our listeners, but also a lot of really great instructional strategies that listeners from anywhere can apply and think about the way that you are managing student learning and the way that you are inspiring them to think about their own skills and apply it to the outside world is something that we all strive to do constantly in our classroom. So a lot of insight to be gained for our listeners from this. So thank you for coming on with us and connecting with us, and thank you for what you do for your students on a daily basis.
My great and humble pleasure. Thank you so much, Ken and Matt. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity for sharing. I can't just wait. I can only look forward to more of these, and I'm always
Absolutely.
hungry for more.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. All right, with us powered down this episode, you have left us feeling powered up. Thank you so much for your time and what you do for education and for our listeners. We look forward to talking to you next week. See you then.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on YouTube. Each week, we get to talk to amazing educators who are making a positive impact on the lives of students, their colleagues, administrators, and education as a whole. It's been such a privilege every week to be able to talk to these incredible individuals, learn from them, grow with them, and better myself and all of education through these conversations. If you haven't already, please consider sharing this with a colleague, someone who can benefit and be powered up from the experience of listening to these incredible conversations. Because of Powered Up, we are powering education by empowering you.